Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm beyond excited to be bringing on my next guest. He is the voice of Numbuh 1 and Numbuh 2 of Codename K.I.D.S Next Door, Sai and Naruto, Joseph Joestar and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Venom and Eddie Brock's Spectacular Spider-Man, and literally thousands of other characters that I can't even remember off the top of my head. Can I please get a round of applause for the amazingly talented and most energetic voice actor I've ever seen, Ben Diskin. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
What's up?
What's going on?
Hi, I'm the ever prompt Ben Diskin. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
I'm so sorry, man. I set my alarm and then I was like, I don't want to be bothered by notifications at night, so I muted everything. I thought I left alarm on. I turned that off too, and I slept through it all. Here promptly, only an hour and 22 minutes late. I am really sorry, man. Normally, I swear I'm better than this.
That's fine. No, funny story. That happened to me too, like opposite, because I was interviewing someone. This is back when I began doing it. I fell asleep and I woke up and I looked outside and it was like kind of dark because it was like AM. And I was like, no, it's night. It's nighttime. Oh my God, I'm late. And I texted the person I was interviewing and I was like, hey man, I'm so sorry that it's late. And he was like, okay. Then I went to my mom. I was like, hey mom, what time is it? She's like, it's 7 a.m. I was like, it's not 7 p.m.? She was like, no, it's 7 a.m. I was like, what? So I went back to him. I was like, hey, about canceling that interview. Let's fix that. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't know what time. I was all over the place. So I completely get it. It's all good. But
cool.
I completely relate. I've done that tons of times before, especially getting ready to go to college because Jesus, that's a struggle.
Yeah, college is nuts, man.
But before I get into my questions, I would just like to say it's a huge honor and an absolute privilege to be able to be speaking to you. I'm a huge fan of your work, and it's just really inspirational to me as an upcoming artist to look at a ton of your body of work and be inspired by a lot of the roles you've taken on and just how I've really infused a lot of your work into my own, and it's really just an honor to be speaking to you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak to me, and I really do appreciate it, and I hope to make it a great time for you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Well, before I get into anything that I have scheduled for you, I have to tell you what Yuri Lowenthal wanted me to tell you. He had a couple things to say. I messaged him and he said, is that Emmy award-winning Ben Diskin?
God damn it. Actually,
yeah,
can you see it up there?
No, I didn't. What? Yo!
Well, there it is. So, yeah, so I guess it is.
That is so cool. He also said his son still likes you better than him. And he also said your voice makes him happy every time he hears it. And that's all he was.
Oh, that is so kind of him. The story behind that is he's He-Man in the new He-Man animated series on Netflix. And I'm Skeletor. And his son, for Halloween, like put together a costume because of the show, and he was like, oh wow, that's such a great costume, like are you trying to be He-Man? He's like, no, I'm Skeletor. And he's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's why his son likes me more. That's what that is.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm very happy for that. I love the fact that kids like the villains.
That's with me too. When I was growing up, I wasn't an Optimus Prime fan. I was a Megatron fan. I wasn't Captain America. Was going for Red Skull. Like I was like, not Red Skull.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, well, maybe not. Maybe there's a line.
Loki, but
fine, that's cool. Yeah, Loki's cool.
More villains like that, but of course I have my questions and things I want to ask you. But a lot of times in interviews, you don't really hear people ask the interviewee like, what are they thinking about? What's on their mind? So my first question, I guess, to you is, Mr. Diskin, what is on your mind? Maybe you could talk about anything you want at all. Maybe there's a story you want to tell other people. There's a food you just ate, something that you just did, a recent job, anything at all. Want to recommend a show, a book? You can literally talk about anything at all. Whatever's on your mind, the floor is yours.
Oh my. Well, let's see. Okay, I'd like to talk about being prompt as an actor. Yeah. Normally, I'm not super late to things. And I'm actually the guy who is always there like about 30 minutes early. Because when I was probably around, I want to say like 19, I was like a typical teenager in the sense that I was like, shut up, mom. I don't need anything. That kind of stuff. And I was on a soap opera called Days of Our Lives. I played a character named Ace, who is like the nerdy kid in the classroom who's like a reporter or something, I think. And I showed up, I was having a lot of sleep problems, and I kept insisting that like I didn't like the fact that my mom kept like knocking on my door and trying to wake me up. And I was like, stop doing that, leave me alone. She's like, all right, fine. And one day I slept in until around 2:30 p.m. and I was supposed to be on set in makeup at 9 a.m. And I will never forget the absolute abject horror that I felt from being that incredibly late. Everybody on the set of that show was mad. Like, the makeup person, mad. The camera people, mad. The director, mad. Everybody. And I was just like, I could feel the tension. I was just like, oh my God. And the truth is, like, I had like only a small amount of work to do on that show. It wasn't like they needed me on set the whole day, but they had to keep pushing up and rearranging the entire schedule because I was not there and they couldn't get a hold of me. So because of that, like, traumatic situation, I am now like early. So like this situation, I'm like, no, not again. So what I'm thinking right now is, oh my God, I am so sorry. Josh, I am so sorry. I know you said it's fine, but I'm so sorry. That's what's happening in my brain. You never get over your first super traumatic late session to a job. So that's what's on my mind right now.
We're taking you back to your childhood, I guess.
Yes.
That's insane. I couldn't imagine being that late to anything, because with me, I like to be like super early all the time. I mean, my class is early in the morning, and I just really like to do everything like super early and try to wake up on time as much as I can. Like, I have a scheduler where I write everything down, like specific time slots for what I want to do and stuff to get it out of the way, because obviously. And most of the time, I don't follow it. I'm like 5 minutes off the schedule, or 10 minutes, or like I wake up a certain time. It's crazy. Me and time, it's really weird because my mom is usually extremely late. Not to call her out or nothing, but when it comes to being on time, that's not her strong suit. She's great at everything else, but time, So that's where we differ a lot, is with time, because like I really like to be on time like all the time, and like I'm rushing her. I'm like, Mom, we gotta go. And she's like, wake me up in 5 minutes. Wake me up in 10 minutes. I will never forget one time when she had to go to work. And I was like, I was like, hey Mom, it's time to wake up. The amount of screaming Ben was insane. She's like, get away, get out. Go. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. And I just and I had to come back and tell her, Mom, it's time to wake up. You gotta go to work. She's like a grizzly bear.
God.
One of the scariest moments I've ever had. It's always a struggle for us. But while I was researching you and looking into some things to talk about, I found out some pretty cool things about you. And one thing I found out is that you are a California native, and that you went to a public high school until you found out you were allergic to the mold in the boys' locker room, and then got homeschooled. So how was that like? Did you like the transition? Was it shocking for you? What do you remember from
Let's see. Well, so for elementary school, it was pretty normal. I had a pretty straightforward childhood school experience. And then I went to junior high, and I think I made about 30 enemies in the first day. Like, when you're an actor, people get the wrong idea about you. And I guess everybody at the school, or at least most of the people I came in contact with, knew that I was an actor and assumed that I was some sort of a mega rich movie star, and treated me with absolute disdain because of that. And I'm like, I'm just a normal kid. I don't even know any of you guys. What the hell? And so the first day there was like an absolute nightmare for me, and I could not wait to get out. So when it turned out that I had asthma, I was like, you mean I don't have to go to this nightmare? Oh, sweet. Thank you. Yes. And so like, yeah, I was delighted to get the hell out of there. And then like, I went to like regular college, and college was like the absolute opposite of like high school. Like if anybody's watching this and you're in high school and you're miserable, college is completely different. College is like, everybody's like an actual adult, and they're just like, we're just here to learn. I'm here to get a degree. Like, like I went to a community college first when I was like 16. And I went there because I did homeschooling. Homeschooling lets you go at your own pace. And I was just like, I'll just crank through like all of this stuff. And I got done like technically a couple of years early. So I went to college, and like the first class I took, was a theater class. It was Theater 101. And there was this guy in class, and he was like this big dude, and he sat down right next to me. And I'm sitting there thinking like, oh boy, I bet this guy's gonna pick on me. Here we go. And he was like really, really nice to me. He was like the nicest guy in the class, and his name was Tony. And then he became like my first college friend. And I was like, oh wait, this is what college is? People are just friendly? This guy isn't gonna bully me and pick on me for being in like, you know, an actor kid. And what's really weird is that I lost touch with Tony, but like 10 years later, I run into him at Disney, and he's working as an assistant casting director there. And he's like, Ben? And I'm like, oh my God, Tony? So Tony wound up going from that job to teaching children's voiceover, because he spent so much time working with kids at Disney. He was like, you know what? I think I like this more than trying to be a casting director. And so now Tony of Kids VO, who is like the most trusted name in training children how to be good voice actors. And like basically if you watch any cartoon show and there's like some little kid who's like really good, very high likelihood it's one of Tony's kids. So like it's one of those things where everything is kind of weirdly connected, where like the person I thought was gonna like torment me winds up becoming like this big success in like a different aspect of the field that I wound up going into. So it was, yeah, I mean, like the school situation worked out pretty well for me in the end, just because I could not stand junior high at all. But yeah, it was neat because I was the smartest kid in class and also the stupidest. And my mother was my teacher because she's actually like an English teacher. So that was, I learned to have some more respect for my mom as a teacher, because it is not easy to teach kids anything. But yeah, I just really enjoyed it. At the end of the day, it was the best of what, because I hate school, dude. Like absolutely, like elementary school, high school, college. I'm like that one guy who's like, oh, you could drop out. No, okay, I don't encourage people to drop out. But like everybody's like, give some words of encouragement about education. I'm like, it's very important. You should do it, cause yes. And in reality, like elementary school, junior high, college, literally none of it helped me in my professional career. Like I have like an English a television and film degree, a bachelor's in TV and film, and I have done absolutely nothing with it. It's like framed at my mother's house so that she can look at this and go, my son went to college. That's literally what like the entire thing went to. It has helped me zero. Now here's what I can do. Now anytime somebody says, Ben, say something that sounds really collegey and smart, I can be like, when you watch this show, the mise-en-scène truly speaks to me, because I know what mise-en-scène means. That's what I got out of college. And like, yeah, that's like 4 years of like college was, I know what mise-en-scène means. And I know how to hold a microphone without making a bunch of rattling noise. You should hold it by your fingertips rather than your entire palm, if it's like a traditional microphone. That's what I got. So yeah, well spent. Money well spent, time well spent.
Yes, that's so crazy. I relate to you a lot in that sense with the school. My mother was trained to be an English teacher too. Like that's crazy. Oh. She's really, when I tell you she's really big on me on essays, like whenever I'm like, Mom, I got an essay, she's like, boy, you better get that right. I was going to school to be an English teacher. I was like, okay, I got you. Because she's really like big into that. She's big on grammatical errors and speaking proper and stuff like that, because I mean she had to go through that grueling process of going to college and learning how to do that. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because I go to community right now, and next year I'm planning to transfer to like a bigger college. And one of my friends was talking to me about like, hey, you come to this college and you I think it was like major or minor, and I can't remember, you could get a spot into Pinewood Studios, and that's where they like, you know, they do the films like for Marvel and I think a couple other Disney projects. And she was like, and he was like, yeah, just come here and we could do that for you. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm looking into that. But to be honest, like I'm really trying to get into this voice acting thing. I just got cast in 2 things. Something that you would be like, oh wow, you're in this like this big thing. It's like a YouTube thing, and
that's cool.
I'm happy for it.
Yeah,
it's they cast me for that. I'm so excited to start doing that next year and to tell people about it. And I just really want to do voice acting. I mean, I'm doing classes with Steve Bloom. I took a class with David Sobolov. I'm just really trying to get into this. And when I hear your story, it makes me question and look at what I want to do going forward. Because it's really like, if you could do this and be super successful, well, you live in California. Never mind. I live in Georgia.
Yeah.
What you could do
like there is
acting-wise.
There is. I mean, I feel like there is starting to get more voiceover work in Georgia because of Disney being over there in the first place. But like I do know Amanda Miller. She's a voice actor who was an LA person, but she also is an on-camera person. So she moved to Georgia, and she still does voiceover remotely from Georgia. Because I mean, like, yeah, nowadays, I mean, man, the one silver lining of the pandemic is like remote recording. That is becoming a thing, and more studios are becoming a lot more open to the idea of, oh, you live elsewhere, but you got good setup. All right. So, I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about where you live right now. It's the times are, they haven't changed completely, but they're about halfway there. It's a weird middle ground.
Does that worry you a little bit as someone who's been doing this for so long and has done like ensemble and stuff like that? How do you feel about it?
It gives me hope because it means like it would mean a decentralized voiceover industry where like you don't have to live in freaking Southern California where everything is like 4 times the national average in terms of like price, because it is, I mean, like, it is rough out here. I know so many people who bust their butts and like they still have to have a second job just to like make ends meet. Like if, for instance, if you ever see somebody who's like really big in like anime, and then they're on Twitch and they're like, follow me on Twitch, and then they go to like a convention like every other week, and they're like, you know, buy my autographs. That's a person who is being paid very little to do anime and is trying to make any kind of money on the back end they possibly can to pay their bills. But like it comes across as like, oh, this person is trying to be famous. Like, nah, this person is trying to like keep a roof over their heads.
Yeah.
So that it gives me hope. But the other issue with like everything being kind of decentralized is that it does rely on the actors having compatible home setups, and there is no real standard for that yet. And I'm concerned that the standard would be ultimately kind of expensive. Like, you have to have this Studio Bricks booth, for instance, which is like $12,000, that kind of thing, where it might be, yeah, see, I don't want that either. But from like an engineering perspective, right, like they have to take all of these completely different setups and make it sound like everybody's in one place. And that's very time consuming, which means it costs more money. So there are definitely drawbacks to it. The only real downside to it that I can see of is because everybody's separate, it means talking to people and connecting with your fellow actors can be a lot harder. Like right now, it's like, go get some coffee with somebody. And, you know, you meet people. People are coming in and out of studios. You physically work with them for ensemble records. But like more and more and more as people get separate, it's so much harder to connect with people and really feel like you're part of a team. And that can mean unfortunately, there are predatory employers out there who will try to take advantage of people and not pay everybody the same rate and pay like, oh, you live in North Dakota? Oh, you don't need to be paid as much as somebody in New York. So this is the rate. And then that person has no idea that they're being paid way less than everybody else on the cast. Obviously, most employers, I think, are good, but The unscrupulous ones, I worry about them taking advantage of people, and especially the more unscrupulous ones tend to be the smaller companies, which means if you're newer, you're more likely to get taken advantage of in this situation. So you really have to make sure that you're in contact with as many people who you know you're working with, which is tough because non-disclosure agreements mean don't talk about this stuff. So how do you figure out who's actually, you won't even know until you're actually on the project working with those people, and then you start trying to contact them and be like, hey guys, are we all working on the same project in the same way here? Are we all being treated the same way? It gives room for abusive behavior from problematic employers, but that's the main drawback. Everything else, though, largely positive. I don't like working from home. I have a booth, but my booth is like, it's like super small, and so like I get really, really hot really, really quick, and I'm drowning in sweat within like 20 minutes. But the commute is wonderful because it's right next to my bed. See, if I'm ever as late as I am to an interview like this, to an actual job, I could be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Hang on, I'll be there in 5 minutes because it's right there. And I'll just turn everything on and I'm so sorry. As opposed to now I have to drive for like an hour to get to the studio and then apologize on top of everything else.
Yeah, that's one thing that's very interesting to me, is that makes me think about, when we were talking about pay scale and stuff, that makes me think about what's going on with some voice actors are talking about the union versus non-union debate, about how non-union is becoming a little bit more popular with a lot of these larger companies. And of course, non-union is, I don't know, since I'm new to this, I don't want to talk out of school, but I think with non-union, you don't get, they could just kind of do whatever they want with you, as opposed to the union, like there's set guidelines and standards that they have to adhere to, or they're in big trouble. So I think that's how that works. And a lot of voice actors are kind of are very upset about that, where non-union work is becoming more frequent, because I know union workers can't work non-union, right?
Right. So the answer to your question is it's complicated. Basically, so everybody starts off non-union. That's just, you're not born with a union card. Not even me. I got mine when I was technically 3 years old, but I still had to earn it. When you're non-union basically just means no rules. Which means, yeah, it's the employer pays you whatever they want to pay you on whatever scale they want to pay you. So for instance, let's say you're talking about anime work. If they want to pay you on a per line basis, they can. If they want to pay you a set rate that's like an hourly rate, they can. If they want to pay you a session fee that covers a certain amount of time, they can. They can just do whatever they want. When it comes to the union, there is a contract that's written by the union, which is a third party, right? It's basically, you're bringing in oversight when you're bringing in the union. The union is there to be like, all right, this is the standard for this type of work, which is called scale. So you're working at scale means whatever that type of project is, this is the minimum. Nothing pays less. Don't change the structure. This is what you get paid, period. And without that, it's anybody's game. Anybody can pay however they want. Additionally, union project means, like, if let's say you're a brand spanking new actor and you show up to work, and I'm working with you on this exact same project, it doesn't matter. They don't go, oh, you're some new person, here's $50 and a bottle of ketchup, go nuts. Like, no, they go, you're getting what Ben's getting. It doesn't matter that you're new, everybody's paid the same, which is really great for newer people. Sometimes, oddly enough, you'll find pushback, specifically in anime. So like, certain companies are non-union. Funimation, for instance, is one of them. They do a tiered system. That's how they choose to do their stuff. So like, you start off, it's like $35 an hour. Then after a certain number of hours worked, it's $50 an hour. Then after a certain number of hours worked, it's $75 an hour. And then I think you have to just ask somebody or know the right person, and then you can get $75 an hour with a 2-hour minimum guarantee. Meaning you're going to get paid $150 no matter what. With the union contract, though, the old contract, the one that expired back in 2003, is $64.25 an hour with a 2-hour minimum guarantee. So this is your first job as a dubbing actor. You're basically getting paid almost what people in Dallas have to work for years to get. So it's a different structure. And what's funny is that you'll talk to some people who are very like kind of old school, people who've been working in this real industry, vets of the anime industry specifically, And they will tell you that they're frustrated at the idea that newer talent is getting paid what they're being paid. And so the tiered system actually makes them feel like they really earned something, and they kind of sort of stick with that. And they're like, I like this thing. I earned this. You should have to earn this too. It's that kind of mentality. And the ironic thing, of course, being that if everything were union, everybody would be being paid better. So like, you sacrifice a little bit of your ego, but then you and everybody else winds up getting paid better and better and better, because the union negotiates every year to raise that rate a little bit to keep up with inflation. So now there's a new dubbing contract that's going to come into effect on, January 1st of this coming year, 2022. And that contract says there's basically two categories. One is Category 2, which is the cheaper one, and Category 1, which is the most expensive one. Category 2 is going to be $87 an hour with a 2-hour minimum guarantee. So basically, if like Funimation were to like flip union, I don't know if they ever will, all of those people who are like, oh, I want to work at like the good rate, would actually see their rate go up. But like people, it's so tough to explain the value of something like this, because the union is very complicated and the rules can get very confusing. And a lot of people who are non-union just straight up don't know what the union is and really what it does, or how to join, or how, all of that stuff. It gets very complicated. But yeah, in general, when things go union, it makes life so much better for the actors. But for a lot of people, they need to see that. They need to experience that. And until they do, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. It's just, it's that kind of situation. But I think things are actually slowly but surely starting to lean more towards the union rate, rather than going non-union. What happened was in 2019, Netflix reached out to the union and said, we want to do all of our stuff union. We want a special contract with SAG-AFTRA. And so SAG-AFTRA said, okay, and they made a contract just for Netflix, and that included a dubbing contract, which is, it basically pays, it's technically $87 an hour with a 50% buyout, which is in lieu of residuals. So meaning you still get paid once, you don't get paid every time the show airs or anything like that, but it resulted in $130 an hour with a 2-hour minimum guarantee. So right now, all of the Netflix stuff is done union, and it pays better than like any other dubbing project out there. And because it's Netflix, there's a ton of work. So we're actually seeing like this shift from like, there were like 8 projects last year that went union to there's over 200. So there's definitely like, things are definitely shifting more towards the union, but there's still a lot of people who are just kind of like, I don't really understand how this works, and I don't know how I feel about this, and I don't know. It's complicated. It's to answer your question.
It sounds like shit. I was listening. I was like picking up, but some of it I was like, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. That sounds like a lot, and that's like a lot to take in, and especially when you're talking about union, and how that works. I was talking to another voice actor, Andrew Morgando, about that, and he was talking about how he was frustrated trying to get into the union because it was extremely confusing for him. He didn't know what to do. He had to ask certain people how to get into it, and that's one thing that's very interesting for me, is to see how many people have that same experience where they're like, it is confusing. I don't know what I'm doing. What is going on? Someone help me. The guidelines are confusing. So one thing I would love to see, if that is the case for what I'm seeing from across the board, I would love to see them explain it more and give more help to people who are trying to get into the union, because people deserve to be protected by rules and laws and set regulations to make sure that they're safe and well paid and able to better take care of themselves and their families. Like, that's a very important thing. So, yeah, man, I that's really interesting that you say that, because Netflix, funny thing about that, obviously, I'm a massive Transformers fan. I love that series so much. And on Netflix is a current show called Transformers War of Cybertron Trilogy. And Peter Cullen did an interview in around 2020, and he talked about his frustration with him not getting the role of Optimus Prime, because I believe that show was non-union, so Peter couldn't do it. And he was talking about how they're trying to, oh gosh, if I could play the clip for you, if I could find it for you, he better explains it. He was like, it's subterfuge. They're trying to do something where I wish I could play it for you because it makes more sense if he explains it to you. I'm not going to reiterate what people say, but he basically said they're trying to get rid of the union, and that worried me a little bit because I'm like, there are a lot of actors such as yourself or Corey Burton or James Arnold Taylor or a ton of these people in the union who, if that is the case, you guys are not working because you guys can only do union work. So that concerned me a lot about how he said it. So yeah. Well, so okay, I'm trying to remember how that show went. If you give me a second, I can find it for you real quick while you're explaining.
Sure. So the let's see. With that Transformers show, if memory serves, that is not a show that Netflix produces, meaning they're not putting up the money for it. So it does not fall under the everything's got to be union rule for Netflix. That's like the loophole. So basically, they can make a non-union show, and Netflix can still purchase it and put it on their platform. Typically, there are. I mean, there are definitely companies out there because like non-union stuff tends to be cheaper, and it also tends to be simpler from a production standpoint. You file union paperwork. You need a payroll company to help you figure out how to properly pay everybody. And how to do taxes for everybody. You need to fill out a lot of relatively complicated paperwork. And some people are just like, I don't want to deal with this. I just want to be like, here's the check, here you go, I'm done. Because it's non-union there's a simplicity to it. And that's why some places are just like staunchly anti-union, which is very, very frustrating from the perspective of any actor, including non-union talent who are trying to get into the union. The most direct way to get in case you're wondering or your friend was still confused, is doing union work allows you to be what's known as Taft-Hartley'd, which is paperwork that they fill out basically saying, hey, we hired this non-union actor to play this character, and this person belongs in the union. So please accept them into the union. And if that Taft-Hartley paperwork is accepted, the actor gets to join the union. They become what's called union eligible, where they have, I think, 30 days to do as much union or non-union work as they want, which is called the OK 30 period. And then they become union must join, which means, all right, if you want to do any more union work, you have to pay the initiation dues to get into the union. And then you get your card, and now you're officially in. It can be very daunting. The price to get in is high. The thing I struggle with the union is that the union is not a voiceover union. It's a actors union. So most of the rules that are in place for the union are based on, they're based on the on-camera world and issues with the on-camera world. So, for instance, there is a rule for Taft-Hartley whenever you get tafted that the producer needs to explain in detail why they hired you and not somebody who's already in the union. And so, for instance, if you're like me, you're a cisgendered white guy. What are they supposed to write? Oh, we couldn't find any straight white men in the union to play this character, right? Like, it's like, so there is a chance that Taft-Hartley paperwork could get rejected. If the paperwork gets rejected, there is a penalty fee, I forget what it is, that they have to pay, which has given way to misinformation that it costs money to taft people. It actually doesn't. It's actually free. But a lot of producers, even big-name producers, think they have to pay and spend extra money just to put somebody in the union, and they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the paperwork, and they're just like, no. And so they say, look, we'll hire you if you're already in the union. And then you go, well, how do I get into the union? I work to get in, but you won't let me work, so how can I get in? It's that kind of thing. The good news is for the Netflix dubbing agreement, what they've done is they've simplified the tafting process. So basically, you fill out page 1 of the taft, which is like, here's this person's name. This is their social security number. Here's their address. This is who they are. The pertinent information you need, and then that's it. You don't have to write some sort of big, weird, glowing like paragraph where you're like, I met the most brilliant actor in the world, and they're the only one who can play this role of Ninja B in Naruto. Like, you don't have to do that. It's just like, fill out their name and send it in. And they look at it, and the voiceover division goes, yep, and then that's it. And then you're tafted. And it's a lot more straightforward. And this has resulted in way more non-union dubbing actors getting their union card. is thanks to this new contract that's in place. So it is getting easier, but there is still, I agree, like I have a lot of friends who are either out of state who are like, I have questions, and I'm like, haha, well, I don't have answers. So I have to like forward all of their questions to somebody like at the union, be like, what should I tell my friend? And then they like write back and they go, all right, Ben, here's how it works. I'm like, okay. And then I have to like forward it back to them to answer a very specific and unusual question. So yeah, I do agree that there definitely needs to be more transparency about how the union works and what you're supposed to do. And yeah, it would make joining way easier and a more streamlined process for newer legitimate talent. And by the way, the reason why that weird rule exists, like I said, is it's based on camera stuff. One of the things on camera deals with is like producers like, I'm gonna hire my girlfriend to be in my movie, and maybe she'll be like, woo, and she'll make me feel real good for putting her in my movie. And they're like, no, you need to hire a real actor, not some hot girl that like, no. It's got to be a real performer. Stop that. Hire one of our actors, because hey, they all pay dues to be in the union. They're spending their own money to do this stuff. You have to hire one of ours. That's what it's there for. But that doesn't happen in anime. Like, I don't really know anybody who's like, hey, baby, you want to be on Bleach? Yeah. Like, that isn't like, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's not really a thing. So, so fortunately they changed that stuff. But yeah, that's why that exists, is weird nonsense and people trying to put non-actors into the union. But there you go.
Well, I found the clip and it's only like a couple seconds, so I'll just play it so he could better explain it,
sure,
because I'm not good at that. Can you hear it?
You guys are excellent. Your voice is
yes.
iconic. How do you guys feel about other actors taking on that role and trying to sound like you guys?
You know, it's funny. It's kind of an unwritten law in the business that we come from, and when we grew up in the business, is you just don't do that. You know, we never take over anybody's voice who can't do it themselves. You just don't do it. But
yeah, it's grand theft. Yeah, that's happening now with Netflix. They're going to produce a Transformer series, but they're not going union. And you know, we work in our union. You know, that's what protects us all as actors. You know, when other guys, you know, go underneath that. And they literally are, you know, they're destroying a union from outside. It's subterfuge. It's just, it's wrong. It's wrong.
And that's what he had to say, basically. So that's what he meant. I said it wrong. Sorry, I'm very bad at that.
No worries. Yeah, no, I mean, I understand exactly what he's talking about. It's frustrating because, so part of the reason why that situation is even a thing isn't because it's a bunch of like union actors, for instance, going like, screw the union, I'll work non-union. Instead, it's a bunch of people who are non-union who are like, this is a job. I got to work. I got bills to pay. And it's a non-union project. Sure, I'll do it. And that's kind of the mentality that those people are coming from. And then you have people who are like, hey, I've been doing this for years. I paid my dues. I've worked really hard at my craft. And now I'm having my work taken away from me. And both perspectives, I think they both have a lot of merit. And yeah, it would probably be a lot better if it were easier for those people to join the union, so that way they could look at this and say, hey, I just joined the union. Why is this project non-union? In fact, one of the projects that I'm on, which is the He-Man show for Netflix, was originally going to be non-union. And myself and a whole bunch of people who are still non-union pushed back and said, this should be done union. I don't feel comfortable working on this show non-union. And you know what? They said, okay. And they made it union. So, I mean, like, when we all talk to each other, we can actually like change things if things really aren't suiting us. Like producers tend to be more accommodating than people give them credit for. It's like, if they see like, okay, all the actors we want are saying no, like, well, all right, sure. And so like, it is possible, but it does require that push. And unfortunately, a lot of newer people, not because they're bad, not because there's anything, they're maliciously trying to ruin things. It's just, they're like, who am I? I'm Joe Blow. I'm some new person. I don't have a long list of credits. If I say no, they'll just hire somebody else. So like, what do you want me to do? So there is no actual bad guy here. It's just an unfortunate situation that evolves from people needing work. That's really what happens. It's both sides really have legitimate points to make. So I do feel bad though when I hear like a veteran voice actor like Peter Cullen being so frustrated, because it makes sense. It is very frustrating. But at the same time, you know, we don't own the characters that we play. We might be very well associated with them by fans, and they mean a lot to us, but at the same time, we don't really have any ownership over those characters. So it's not really being stolen from us. So it feels that way, but technically it's not. Like if they remade Codename Kids Next Door and they didn't hire me to be number 1 and number 2, I'd be really upset. But I'd ultimately just be like, well, them's the breaks. I mean, like, maybe they're going for something else. Maybe they want real kids to play those characters, and I don't sound like a real kid, so maybe that's what they do. And I'd be like, hey, you know what? Maybe if I get to be a bad guy on the show, I'd be happy. But it's you gotta be able to separate, you know, many years of personal experience and a lot of very, very personal feelings from. At the end of the day, it's a job. And that's very, very hard to do when you're so invested in the character, and especially for somebody like him. I mean, he's been playing that character for, God, 25 years. Like, yeah, a long time. Like, he is that character. So, I mean, it's so hard. It really is.
Yeah, I was about to say, I completely agree with what you're saying, and that's something that I've learned and become more appreciative of through speaking to voice actors. Because before me interviewing or even meeting voice actors at conventions and stuff, whenever I heard that one of my voice actors wasn't doing the character that I associated them with for so long, I was extremely frustrated. I was very mad. I was like, this is bull. They own this character. It's theirs, it's theirs, it's theirs. And then it took a lot of y'all to just be like, no, calm down. This is not our character. We didn't write him. We didn't do this. Yeah. This isn't our character. I mean, we've done them for 15 years plus or 20 or 50, whatever. But at the end of the day, this isn't our character. This belongs to their intellectual companies, like whether it be Hasbro, Disney, or Nickelodeon, or even Cartoon Network. It's theirs at the end of the day, which could be frustrating for both the actor and majority of the fans who don't really understand the know-it-alls and the know-hows of how this industry works and how characters work and what really goes into making this. Voice acting is a very collaborative effort. There are voice directors, casting directors, engineers, like there are tons of people on this that help make the character, and there are a ton of things. Maybe you're right. Maybe the companies want to go in a new direction. Maybe they want to take this into a fresh new installment. And it's very hard for fans and of course, the actors to come to grips with, because you've been doing this character for so long, and us, the fans, and you, the actor, are like, well, I mean, I kind of do own this. Well, not own, but like I've invested my life force in this character. I've played this character for 15 years plus, and now you're telling me, oh no, we're not doing it anymore, someone else. Like, I could understand how it's very frustrating for you, especially for me as a fan, as someone who is a fan at the end of the day of these respective properties. It's very frustrating.
It is. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's tough to say, hey, you know that thing that you've invested your life into? Well, that's not really yours. And just be like, oh, okay. You know, like, but yeah.
On to the next job.
Exactly. It's tough to decouple those emotions. It really is. Yeah.
Now we've been talking about the voice acting industry and stuff for so long. I want to get to know more about you, and the amazing person that you are, and just talk about your.
Oh shucks.
And talk about your past, in a sense, and your childhood. So for some who don't know, you've been doing this since you were a little child. Of course, you have been in Kindergarten Cop. You've been in what's another one? I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind that you were in when you were young. You've been in commercials when you were a kid. You've been doing a ton of things. You've been in this industry since a child, and you even jokingly said you've been in this industry since you were in the room. So you know. You've been in this for a while, so my first question, well, I've asked you a ton of questions, so it's not my first, but how would you say your past, more specifically your childhood, helps fuel you as an artist in this industry?
Oh, well, so sometimes I'll meet somebody who looks like they're like maybe almost 40, and they'll say like, dude, I grew up with you, and it messes with my head, because I'm like, you look like you're my age. And they're like, oh, right, that's right, because I grew up with me too, technically, because I was working as a child. So what my experience was transitioning from being a child voice actor to an adult voice actor, which is a jarring experience especially if you're a boy, because boys tend to, like, their voice changes a lot more severe than girls. Girls tend to be like, they sound like a little girl and then they gradually, slowly but surely sound like a woman. Boys, it's like, nope, not anymore, son.
Right.
And yeah, so you go from being like the reason why I would get work as a kid was because I was a child. I had a real little boy voice, and my parents were both actors, so they would coach me on things, and I could take direction pretty well. And then suddenly my voice changed, and now if I want to compete, I'm competing against adults who've been doing this for decades, and they are way more experienced than me. And I'm just some kid at the end of the day. And I was relying so much on being the kid that, like, I can't transition that. I can't use that anymore. Be like, I'm a kid. They're like, no, you're an adult. You don't sound like a little kid. Well, so can you act? Oh, oops. And that's where a lot of child voice actors, their career ends. It's their voice changed, they're done. But for me, I was getting more and more frustrated getting cast as the kid, even as a kid. Because it was always like, I want to do voices. I want to be a cartoon voice actor. I like that. I like stretching my voice and doing weird things. Can I try this? Can I try this? No, you're the child. No, you're the child. And like, it got to a point where I got so frustrated that I was like, I am going to do everything in my power to stretch my vocal range as far as it'll possibly go, so that people will, and I'll just start doing voices for auditions. I don't care if people say like, no, I want to hear your voice. I'll be like, well, this is my voice now. Here you go. And I would just do that. And finally, people started going, oh, I guess Ben can do other voices. And then I was able to transition from being the little kid to being like, no, I got some good vocal range. And so I started working more, getting more experience, and improving as an actor. And so that's how I kept the career going, basically, from being like, oh, voice change, bye. Excuse me, bye. Or bye. But yeah, that's how my childhood impacted my career. Depending on how you talk to actors, whenever we do auditions, you're supposed to slate most of the time, which is, hi, this is Ben Diskin trying out for, Chucky, whatever the name of the character is. And some people will say you should just slate in your own regular speaking voice and then go into the character voice. Some people will slate in character. I always slate in character. And I do that because of my experience growing up, which was, if they heard a young person's voice and then transition into the voice I'm doing, they would just go, I can tell it's some kid trying to sound like an adult on the phone. That's what this is. This doesn't sound right. So I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. You're only hearing the character from beginning to end in character. And that's how, so like those sort of, I don't want to say traumatic experiences, that's very much an exaggeration, but like those kind of like frustrations that I dealt with as a kid, I'm like, they shaped how I approach all of the work that I do today.
That is amazing. And you do have an extremely impressive vocal range.
Not right now. I just woke up. Just FYI. I'll do my best if you want me to do stuff, but
no.
You play Cutemon on Digimon, do it. Hi, guys.
I was going to say, I don't think you can do that voice right now. When you're ready and really ready for the booth and stuff, and you're just so impressive to me. Like, I was looking at your IMDb and you're behind the voice actors and stuff, and I was like, there's no way in hell this has been, but it is you. And I'm like, what the, wow, that's so cool. And it's just so, like I said, to go back to what I said in the beginning, so inspirational to me as someone who wants to be able to do vocal manipulation and improve their range, because right now, this is as much as you're going to get. Like, I could go higher to, like, a Skeletor type level, where it's like, like this. Like, I can kind of do it like that or make it sound nasally. But at the end of the day, you play a lot of characters that don't sound like you. And that's what I want to do. I want to try to accomplish. And that's when I say you're a real inspiration to me, as someone who's like, I want to try and do it like this, or look at it this way, or reframe how I look at it and switch it around. Because it's so cool. You go from Cutemon to Eddie Brock to Skeletor to like freaking #1 and #2. It's like, it's really cool. It's really cool. And that's what is really cool about voice acting to me, is how you guys can do that. You can switch it up like that. And that's not, on-camera actors can't do that. They can't. Like, for the most part, they really can't do that. I mean, some of them are really good.
Johnny Depp. I feel like he's the only one that are like, we'll put you in makeup. And he's like, great. Now I'm Edward Scissorhands. Now I'm a pirate. Like, that's the only one I can think of. Everybody else is like,
yeah, really good at that. But for the most part, on-camera actors are really stuck to their face and how they can convey the emotions, and it's just their voice, which is perfectly fine. On-camera actors are amazing at what they do, but voice acting is just another caliber of that. When I look at voice actors like D. Bradley Baker, who could make creatures out of nothing, I'm like, what? That is insane. And it's so cool to see.
You want to hear a D. Baker story?
Yeah.
So on Kids Next Door, because he plays Numbuh 4, he would also play like a lot of the monsters on the show, and one of them is a bed that comes to life, but it's like a wild bull. So it needs to sound like a bull, like in a rodeo, but it's also made of wood. And so our director and showrunner Tom Warburton said to Dee, he said like, okay, so I need like this bull sound, but I need it to sound kind of like blocky and woody. And so like Dee does that, and it sounds like it's a bull, but it's like kind of like choppy and chonky and weird sounding. And then like as a joke, Tom says, "You're a little too pine. I need you more mahogany." And it was meant to be a joke, and Dee just goes, "Oh, okay." And so he gives it like this darker, richer tone to the animal sound combined with the wooden sound, which is mahogany is a deep, dark wood. And everybody's just like, "Oh." And like Tom's like, "Well, I was joking, but I mean, actually, that does sound really good." So, yeah, okay, we'll go with that. So like, yeah, like no, Dee is a, and I mean this in a good way, a monster when it comes to like monsters. Like, yeah, he's that dude, like tricks for days that he just like pulls out of his hat at a moment's notice. Like, oh, you need a weird like bird honking noise? You want me to be an ostrich? Hang on. And then he just produces some sound. I assume it comes from his mouth. I assume. Maybe it shoots out of his ears. I don't know. And it's this loud, high-pitched sound. And you're just like, what the f? And then he just leaves. And he goes like, all right, guys, well, that was my job. Thanks so much. And he leaves. And everybody's like, what? How do you? Yeah, no, there are some people out there who are insanely talented that most people don't even know who they are. That's like the majesty of being a voice actor is you go outside and then you go to Ralph's. You know, you could be like some sort of like an incredible actor that like transcends multiple generations of like people's youths in shows. And then, you know, you go buy a loaf of bread. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares.
Yeah, that's another thing that's cool to me about voice acting is that you guys are masters at your craft, but also you guys get to have a sense of privacy about yourselves, get to go about your day and live your lives, and you can just go unnoticed. And I think that's really cool. Like, someone's childhood is literally walking right next to them, and they're just waving at them in the grocery store, don't even know who they are. That's really cool. I love that. Since you been in this industry for so long, was there ever a time where you were like, I want to do something else. I want to be a scientist or a doctor or a surgeon or a police officer or a police firefighter, or whatever?
Well, when I was a kid, I mean, brace yourself for the creativity. I wanted to be an astronaut. I know, nobody wants that. What a shock. But then, I know, contain yourself, please. Then I learned that you need a lot of math and science in your background, and I went, oh, never mind. And so that was like the one time where I was like, oh, maybe something else. And then I went, nah, I think I'll just stick with the acting thing. Yeah, I don't think I want to deal with math all day long. Going into space, awesome. Needing to know how to do it, less than awesome. So I went, nah. That's the one time I ever wanted to be something else. Was little kid, be an astronaut, never mind.
But hey, with voice acting, you can be an astronaut. So in a way,
that's true.
You're living your dream that way. So now, with you coming from this on-camera background and commercials and stuff, how did the wonderful world of voice acting get introduced into your life?
Well, let's see. When I was a kid, I did a lot of on-camera stuff. So one of the big ones that I did as a kid was Kindergarten Cop. And I very, very foolishly told other kids on the playground, I'm in this movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because I was really excited about it. And when you're a kid, you're, what's the word? Stupid, really stupid. Yeah, that's the one. So glad that you beat me to the punch, because you're right. And so then word got spread around the campus that Ben is a movie star, and he's making $1 million to be in this movie, and he has his own car, even though I wasn't old enough to drive, and he lives in a mansion. And so I had all of these kids who I didn't know trying to be my friend because they thought I could, like, you know, buy them things, I guess, and that I was the famous guy. And then they realized, no, he's not. His mother is taking all the money he made from that and putting it in a bank account to pay for his upcoming college eventually. Like, no, he's not rich. No, he's not famous. And so all of those people who were trying to be my friends felt like I had lied to them, even though I actually wasn't, and I never said, like, I'm rich. And so then they all hated me and started treating me with terrible disdain. And I was like, I don't ever want to deal with this again. But voiceover was also kind of taking off a little bit for me. My first voiceover job was when I was 10. So this was probably about a year after the Kindergarten Cop came out, was when I started booked my first cartoon show, which was called Problem Child for the USA Cartoon Express, which was a Sunday morning kids block. And I played the main character in that. And there were kids in my school who watched that show, to my surprise, because like a Sunday morning kids block was not a very common thing. But they knew that show, and they knew me personally. They were in class with me, and they had no idea that I played that character. And I realized, oh, if I don't tell people, nobody has to know. And so I would tell only like a couple of people. I'm like, listen, swear this to secrecy. That's me. And they went, no, it's not. And I said a line from the show, and they went, oh my God, it is. And I'm like, yeah, but don't tell anybody, okay? And they went, okay. And it didn't spread around campus. And I went, oh, I can be an actor, and I don't have to deal with the fame that comes from this that I don't like, and just be a performer. And so the on-camera stuff, I would continue with it because it was part of the acting career, but I just kind of went, it started to fade away, and I was like, I don't care. And then voiceover started taking over, and I went, yeah, this is clearly where I belong. This is my niche. This feels right to me. So yeah, that's how that kind of transition went about. It was just one just naturally faded away, and the other one took over, and I'm very happy that it went that way.
And we all are too, man. You've done so many great things and so many projects, and have touched so many lives through your work, and it's truly impressive. And man, I really relate to you a lot in the sense with the bullying thing. People would bully me a lot when I was doing elementary school because I would tap dance. I was a big tap dancer, and
cool.
One time I remember I was not feeling good, and my mom was like, "Hey, we can keep you home." And I looked at her, I was like, "No, get me in the car, we're going." And we went to the school, and I tap danced my heart out sick, but I felt not sick. My stomach was a little turning upside down, and I felt great after it. So I guess God was telling me to go there and do it because I felt great afterwards. But I used to love tap dancing so much, and then people would be like, "Why are you tap dancing? That's feminine of you. You should stop." And they'd start calling me mean things to my face. And one time I was like, "Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm tired of dealing with this." And I stopped. And that's one thing I wish I never stopped, because it was so much fun. I remember watching Happy Feet, and I was like, that's me. I tap dance. And I was like so happy because that's a thing. And I was really happy with how Happy Feet came out. But you know, yeah, I'm glad that you found a way to continue your passions without giving up on it, like I did, because of how people were treating me. And I can't imagine what it's like for other people who are in this industry and are kids or famous parents. Like, what is like how do the kids in like public school treat them? Like, oh, let me be your friend so I could like get in close with your father, or your mother was like this big. And I could imagine it must be extremely difficult to tell who is really your friend or who really like wants that fame or that clout from you. It's a really difficult balance to see where it is, and that must be extremely frustrating. So really glad you found somewhere else to put your talents in. Since you've been doing this for so long and have done so many characters, how would you say through doing this, acting has really helped you grow as a person? Because I remember I was watching a podcast with Kevin Conroy, and he said playing Batman has helped him be more emotionally vulnerable and made him be able to open up more about his emotions, be more in tune with them, which is an amazing story. Do you have a similar experience to that?
Yeah. So voiceover helps me in terms of getting to express sides of me that I normally wouldn't. It's one of the reasons why I love playing the villain, because, you know, everybody gets mad about stuff, but like I tend to be kind of like, I don't want to make waves. I don't want to piss everybody off. So I'll let that slide. I'll let that slide. I'll let that slide. And so being the villain is like, oh, all of that pent up frustration, here it is. And it serves a really great purpose. So like some people, you know, they get out the heavy bag and they work it. I'm the guy who gets in the booth and I work things out through character work. So yeah, it's one of the reasons why playing the villains are always my favorite. Like, I love playing the good guys too, but like the bad guys who are just mean and crazy. It's like, oh yeah, oh daddy, like it's because it's such a relief to just say a bunch of horrible things and know that like no, you're supposed to. It's fine. Oh, you're trying to like murder your own nephew? Adorable. We're putting it in a kid's cartoon. You know, it's like it's great. So like yeah, like it's it is a great emotional outlet for me for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That is, I can relate to that too. There's this character I did recently where it's like it's like Skeletor. It's like it's like really angry. I was really grumpy that day, and I was like, you know what? You're gonna get all the grumpiness. You're gonna get all the mad waking up in the morning feelings. And I put it on the mic. My voice was killing me, but I was glad I got to do it. Heck
yeah, that's the life.
Right? You guys were playing creatures and characters in Call of Duty who have to scream their freaking heart out. Oh. Yeah, I've spoken to a ton of people who do additional voices for Call of Duty, and they're like, their voice is killing them after because you have to say, frag out, grenade out, Molotov out, and like a ton of stuff like that. And you have to like scream because you're in a war zone. You have to try and get that point across so other soldiers can hear you. So I can understand how those video games are like a tear on your throat.
You know what's interesting is I recently did, I'm not allowed to talk about what the project is, but it's that kind of like a Call of Duty, Medal of Honor kind of thing. And they did the opposite. They said, so yeah, we talked to some actual like trained Army veterans about this. And what they told us was if I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, something has gone horribly wrong. Like most of it is actually like I'm talking into a comm system and I'm kind of calm and measured, like frag out. Get under the bridge. It's that kind of thing. So for this one, and I was like, I had to cancel all my other work. I was like, I'm doing one of these guys where I'm going to be screaming at the top of my lungs. And I showed up and it was like vocally not stressful at all. And I was like, oh, is this the future? We don't have to do that anymore. Oh my God, thank you. Because yeah, no, Call of Duty, I did one, I think it was, I want to say it was a Medal of Honor game back when I was like late teens, early 20s. And we were about 3 hours in and they were like, can you take some of the gravel out of your voice because it's getting a little too scratchy sounding? And I'm like, this is what I sound like now because I've been screaming for 3 hours. I really can't. I'm sorry. So this is what you got, because that's what it was. Yeah, no, those things are, they are brutal. They are brutal. I don't think that was actually the question. I think I just interrupted you to mention things that might be changing, but yeah.
Oh, no. It was an example just talking about how like my doing vocally straining voices like that. But another one that's extremely vocally frustrating that you've talked about, and one that was my first time getting introduced to your voice, was Codename K.I.D.S, which is a show that I adore. It's very near and dear to my heart. Me and my friend are big into cartoons. We'll always debate which is better. He loves Ed, Edd n Eddy. I love Codename K.I.D.S. We always go back and forth about it. It's fun to debate cartoons with him because he's just so much into it, just like me. And I just love the way you did these characters and how you did justice to these characters. And one thing I found really interesting is how you came to get these roles. Could you retell the story of how you got the role of number 1 and number 2?
Yeah, so for 1 and 2, originally I tried out for number 2 and number 4. And that was going to be like my extent for the audition. So the creator of the show, Tom Warburton, he had someone in mind for number 2 already, which was, her name is Sue Rose. For anybody out there who remembers a show named Angela Anaconda, she played Angela Anaconda. It's kind of an obscure show, but that was who he wanted to play number 2. And the casting director, Colette Sunderman, said, you know, let's open up this role for audition 2, just in case you hear somebody that you like more than your friend Sue, who's very talented. And he said, okay, sure. So I got to audition for number 4, which I did not get. D. Baker got that, and number 2. And so he said that once he heard my audition, he said, oh no, I've got to tell my friend Sue I'm hiring somebody else. I like this guy. So I wound up getting that role. The role of number 1 was, originally it was Tom Kenny, because Tom Warburton wanted to work with Tom Kenny, who doesn't. He's a great talent, very nice guy. But it just wasn't quite what they were looking for. So instead they said, let's get like a real child actor to play this character. And they did. They found this kid who, he wasn't British, but his mom was. So he grew up hearing the British accent and could do like a perfect British accent. And they were like, that's our voice. And so we recorded the pilot. We got everything ready to go. And this kid went off to summer camp. And when he came back, his voice had changed completely. Suddenly, he sounded like a man. And they were like, oh no, what do we do? So they were like, all right, we have to re-audition number one. So they sent out a bunch of auditions. Didn't find what they were looking for, and then they said, you know what, let's have Dee and Ben, since they're already on the cast, let's have them try out for it, see what you think of one of them. And so I did my thing for number one, and he was like, yeah, okay, that's our new number one. And so that became our pilot for the cartoon competition to find like the next Cartoon Network original cartoon. And it won the viewer poll, and so we were like, all right, now it's going to be a series. And so it turned into like a 6-season long production where I was like playing two of the lead characters, having done basically very little before that. I think the biggest thing I did was a recurring character on Hey Arnold as Eugene, and then like so went from like not much to like everything. Did I lose you for a second? Did you just vanish?
Yeah,
are you all right?
Me. Hold on, because my phone is like bugging out. It's
oh
like,
no.
Yeah, my bad. So I have to plug the charger in.
There we go.
Okay, you can hear me too, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. I just want to make sure because I've had to fix stuff around. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry about that, man. I really am sorry. I don't mean to.
Technical difficulties, folks. It's okay.
I'm so sorry for that. But that story is really cool to me. How like you took them. I didn't know Tom Kenny was originally supposed to be number one. That's really cool. I did not know that at all. I don't think a lot of people know that. But Tom Kenny did later go on to play Santa Claus in that show, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's played so many characters in that show. Like he's all over the place.
But this show is so, it's still talked about to this day. I still hear about Kid Named Code Next Door and the impact that it's had on so many others. I remember when I was watching, you guys did a panel, funny enough, in Atlanta right here at MobileCon 2016, talking about Kid Named Codes Next Door. And I remember you did the, shoot, you were like battle stages, you screamed. And you're like, you don't have to do it right now. Please don't do it right now.
My neighbors appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, but I thought that was really cool how you guys still have passion for this show, because sometimes after a long time, actors kind of like lose their passion for things, or they move on to the next thing, and they're like, oh, that was cool, but we're doing something else. But you guys still, I could tell you guys have passion for these characters, which really makes me want to see you guys come back, and we're gonna get a little bit into that some later on. But what was the average day? No, this is what I wanted to ask. Did you base the voices of those characters off of like an old TV show or like a friend that you used to know?
So not number two. Technically, number one started off as a Patrick Stewart impression because that was kind of what Tom had envisioned. And then he just kind of branched off into just sort of being his own character. But number two was just a voice that I thought would fit the character. Because I was like, well, he's kind of rotund, but I don't want to do like a fat guy voice, because like the fat guy voice is always like, hey guys, it's me, like I have a sandwich in my mouth at all times because I'm fat. And like, how many people who are overweight who actually sound like that? Like basically none. So I was like, no, he's a dork. I'm going to lean into like the nerdy sound. And that's the voice I went with for him. He started off being as like, kind of like this, just sort of like in the pilot, this is what he sounds like, and then slowly but surely it came up to here, and his voice just kind of like went through an entire transformation, and number one became less, I am focused, here I am number one, to being more like a character who would freak out at all times, start off very strong, and then wah! And so yeah, no, they just kind of organically grew into the characters that they are, not really based on anybody, I'd have to say. Technically Patrick Stewart, but not really.
Got you. You're working in this room with incredible talents like we named Tom Kenny, but you have Cree Summer, D. Bradley Baker, Frank Welker, Neil Ross. These are legends in the industry. How would you describe an average day in the studio recording for this show was like?
Well, let's see. I was at that time in my life where I was a grumpy teenager, and like I was like, I want the world to burn. And also I'm like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by people who made my childhood. Don't act like a fanboy. You are their colleague now. Be polite. So I was just very, very quiet until it was my turn, and then it was like, Wah! And then back into like dark Ben mode. It's like, do not express the darkness that lies within. And then, yeah. And then finally, like, everybody is like, I mean, everybody's of course extremely kind. Like, all of those people who you just listed are like some of the most humble, down to earth people imaginable, despite having like these amazing careers. And so I just basically got to sit there and watch the people who made my childhood become my colleagues and work with me. And it was like, it was a really cool experience. I wish I'd had a better attitude, if I'm being honest with you. If I could go back in time and just kind of go, I would totally like be like, you have any idea how lucky you were? What the hell is wrong with you? Smile, you little idiot. But like, so that's my one regret. But other than that, no, it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Very emo teen phase. For me, that was middle school, 8th grade. It was kind of just like, ugh, get out of my face. Why are you talking to me? I'm gonna punch you in the face. Go away. Yeah, I don't like you. I'm about to get piercings in my nose and my fingers and in my feet. Yeah, you know, like all that like very gothic type vibe. I never got full gothic. I like the black everything. But,
nice.
but, yeah, no, I relate to you on that as well. But you know, everything that happens, you know, is a part of our journey. So maybe that was what needed to happen for you to look back and fully appreciate it and be able to be like, you know what, this was an amazing experience to work with these incredible legends who've been doing this for so long. I mean, when you told that D. Baker story, that is incredible. You must have been like astounded when he did that. Like, he was just joking around. Tom Warburton was joking around, and then D was just like, oh, okay, boom, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that probably happened. And then another story I remember he told was when Tom Kenny was Santa Claus.
Do we gotta tell that story again? Let's not. You know what? It's like it's 12:30 in the morning. I think that's too that's too raunchy. But here's the thing, guys. What you have to understand is if you're watching this right now, the younger the target audience of the show is, the more likely there are dirty jokes being told behind the scenes at all times. Voice actors love going blue. And so much of it is not fit for TV at all. So, like, just picture, like for instance, when I was a kid, one of my childhood shows was a show called Tiny Toon Adventures. Are you familiar? Okay. And Charlie Adler was on that. Correct. He played Buster Bunny. So my first time ever meeting Charlie Adler is I'm at Studiopolis, which is a studio. I'm working on a project. He's there to do another thing. All I hear is, because I'm in the kitchen, I don't see him, he's coming in the front door. I hear the voice very clearly of Buster Bunny of my childhood basically saying, holy shit, is that my motherfucking friend? Come here, you C-word, give me a hug. Just every single swear word imaginable as he's like meeting somebody that he's like friends with. And I'm like, Buster? Because like you don't hear that when you watch the show, but like Charlie is a swear word savant, and I mean that as a compliment. He will pull the weirdest, wildest stuff right out of his butt, and it's like the funniest stuff ever. Anyway, so yeah, that is what we're all like. Like, yeah,
and even
it's kind of great
because you have those jokes that you don't usually catch until you're like way older. When you come back and then you catch them, you're like, did they really say that when I was a kid?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how stuff like that works. Since there are tons of seasons and tons of arcs and stuff for Codename Kids Next Door, what was your favorite story element added to either number 1 or number 2?
Let's see. Ooh. It might be for number 1, kind of his growth throughout the series, because he does start off being very, very like, I am the leader with this like iron grip on things, but he becomes like a little bit more emotionally sensitive as it goes on. And all the way through the ending where like he's like legitimately like sad to like leave his friends behind, and he sort of like abandons the whole like, I'm your boss, do what I say, like I'm in charge kind of personality that he'd had throughout most of the series, where like that kind of fades away and it's like, no, this is still just a kid, you know? So it's sort of like his journey of like emotional vulnerability as the show goes on, I think is pretty cool. And also his girlfriend cracks me up, Lizzie. I'm just like, she's crazy. And just the fact that like she's like the only one who could just like straight up boss him around. And he's like, whatever you want, my dear. Like, it's just like, yeah, that makes me laugh.
Of course, with everything going on around us, of course, now we're entering a streaming service age. We have tons of streaming services: HBO Max, Disney Plus, Peacock, something I'm probably forgetting off the top of my head.
HBO Max.
There's too many.
Yeah, sure.
It's basically cable network television if you get all of them.
Yep.
But with there being new streaming services, these streaming services are going to need content to draw in more viewers. I hope you know where I'm going with this. Now, Galactic, Codename K.I.D.S Next Door, right, was canceled. It was you said that Cartoon Network had no interest. My question to you is, since we're seeing HBO Max and a ton of the Cartoon Network content is on HBO Max, have you seen any movement or heard any new interest into picking up that show?
I've heard nothing. I know that Tom did approach them and said, like, what do you think? But I have heard nothing from it. So I could, and if I did, I technically wouldn't be able to tell you anyway, because it's like a non-disclosure agreement type violation. But like basically, I have heard nothing. I'm not holding out hope for it, to be honest with you. I think that it would be really awesome to do, and I'm not sure how it would really work because, you know, Codename K.I.D.S Next Door was a show for kids, but it's been like, I think about 20 years, something like that, 15 years, something like that.
The show first came out in 2002, 2021. Yeah, it's going to be almost 20 years now.
20 years old, yeah. So, like, but, like, if they made a show for kids that takes place after that, I feel like those kids would probably be like, what the heck is K.I.D.S Next Door, and wouldn't know who the characters are. But if you make it too mature, for like the older kids, well, it's no longer the same show. So that's like one of those really tricky balancing acts to pull off. So I'm not even sure what that show would look like, to be honest with you. But it would be really cool if we could do it, you know? And I mean, like, I know everybody on the main cast would be like, yeah, I'd come back. So, you know, it's one of those things of, I hope it happens. But like, I'll probably know when you know is how that stuff usually works. Like, if you see like something saying like, hey guys, this is becoming a thing on Twitter, I'm gonna go, oh shit, really? Like, pretty much at the same time. Like yeah, that's how fast things go. Because streaming services, man, when you say they are hungry for content, you are not wrong. They are like, we want this, we want it now, go make it. And it's like, okay, the turnaround times for some of these things are completely insane. So like, yeah, big time. I hope it happens. But like, anybody who wants to know, like, I'm the wrong person to ask. I'll have no clue. I will never know.
Dang, I would love to see it. And especially, right, to talk about the turnover for content, especially with the corona pandemic, a lot of these shows that, shows or live action shows or movies have now been turned into animated products, and now people are putting more money into these. So now we're getting more sophisticated content turned into a Netflix original or a D Plus original or a Hulu exclusive. Like, we're getting stuff that would have probably never been made due to the pandemic. So I really do hope they do it. I get what you're saying, where it's kind of hard to balance it. And you're right, it would be hard to balance it because you're right. It's since 2002. And it ended all the way in 2008. So it's been a pretty large amount of time between. So it would be very interesting to see how they would pull that off. I do remember seeing like a promo thing of it, though. Did you record any lines for a potential project before you guys find out they weren't interested, or none at all? Yeah.
So Tom put together what was going to be an animatic, which is, for those of you guys who don't know, that's a moving storyboard, basically, of a pilot that would be a pitch for Galactic K.I.D.S Next Door. And he basically called us up and said, like, hey guys, I don't have any money for this thing. I can't pay you guys, but would you be willing to like just kind of like come in and like do some voices for this thing? And we all were like, yeah. So like we all showed up and we all recorded for it, and then they put it all together, and that was going to be the pitch that he was going to use to sell people on the show. And that was the only thing we recorded for Galactic K.I.D.S Next Door. That was the one and only idea, and then it was like, well, you know, c'est la vie.
Man, I was kind of expecting something more, but I ain't gonna lie. I thought you were gonna be like,
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, man. Tom just reached out to me and was like, well, you could. Well, actually, yeah, you're right. You couldn't tell us. You get fired.
No. Yeah.
NDAs are very tricky. It's interesting to see like what you guys can and cannot talk about, and like the level that goes to, and like what could happen and the potential penalties is really weird. I remember I was talking to David Soboloff, and he was like, for one of the NDAs, he said if he broke it, he had to pay like $1 million in fees. So,
yeah, non-disclosure agreements are very, very confusing, and there is like, oh my God, there's so much misinformation on the internet. Oh my God, it's complicated, is what NDAs are basically. Like for instance, when I was a kid, non-disclosure agreements were really, really uncommon, like for like animated series. Because here's what it was, right? Like this is what a leak would look like back in like the 80s or 90s. It was some journalist approaches an actor and says, hey, can you tell me all about that show you're working on? And then they go, oh yeah, I am working on the show. I played the lead character, and this, and this, and this, and this. And they go, oh, and then they write it in like a magazine, a physical paper thing that you have to buy, and then people buy it and they read it and they go, oh, a new show is coming out. And that's what a leak looked like, which was very uncommon for voice actors because we're a bunch of like random dudes in a room. Nobody knows who we are. We're not celebrities. So non-disclosure agreements were not very common back then. It was just sort of like, yeah, just don't talk about stuff, okay? Cool. And then that was it. And then the internet happened. So the internet resulted in, this is back in the day, message boards and forums where like people would share information they really shouldn't, but like if you weren't on that special forum, you didn't know who that person was, and a lot of people on the internet are anonymous, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Still not so cool, but people would say things they shouldn't say. Then MySpace happened. MySpace wasn't too bad. Then Facebook happened. Facebook changed everything. Facebook is a situation where you will have like 2,000 friends. Now, I don't know about you. I don't actually have 2,000 friends. I have maybe 2,000 acquaintances who I met at a party, and they were like, can we be friends on Facebook? And I'm like, yeah, sure. That's it. So like, what would happen is actors would go on their Facebook page, their private Facebook page, and they would be like, hey, everybody, I just booked a lead role on this show. Isn't that neat? And thinking, oh, only my friends and family are going to see that. And my friends and family, they're cool. They know not to talk. Then it gets shared to people you don't know, and it spreads all over the internet. And then it becomes common knowledge, and everybody becomes aware of this. So non-disclosure agreements started to become more commonplace. Then Twitter and Instagram happened, and now they're everywhere because it's like you don't have to follow me on Twitter. Somebody can just, share and retweet something I said, and if I leak one little thing, it spreads like wildfire. So the purpose behind all the non-disclosure agreements, none will ever say this, by the way, categorically. You will never find an NDA that just specifically says this in legal terms. It's keep it off the internet, stupid. That's the main reason for all of these things. No, it's very rare that you'll sign an NDA where they're like, we're going to cut off your thumbs if you ever say a word of this to anybody. The reality is they just don't want it to spread online. That's really what this is. But if you see an NDA, they all basically say the same thing, which is you are never supposed to say anything in private, in public, in any way, shape, or form to anybody who is not signed to this NDA. That being said, like, guys, we have a non-disclosure agreement violation that is so common that it has its own nickname, which is a friend-DA, which basically means I'm telling, like, listen, man, you and me, we're close friends. I'm only telling you this. Don't tell anybody. Right? And, like, guys, that if real talk, if everybody got punished as severely as non-disclosure agreements make it seem on the internet, every single voice actor that you know, every single one of us would all be blacklisted from the industry. Because actors need to shut the heck up. We really do. It is a serious issue. But like, people get excited and they tell their friends, they tell their family. Technically speaking, for instance, it is a non-disclosure agreement that I tell my wife what I'm working on. If you want to get really technical, because she's not signed to an NDA. She just knows better. She knows don't tell people about it. It's private information. It's just between the two of us. It happens all the time. But the reason why you'll find voice actors are so vocal about NDAs online, there are multiple reasons. One of the reasons specifically is we want to create it's kind of the voice acting equivalent of virtue signaling, right? It's I want any producer who looks at my social media feed to see, okay, this guy takes NDAs very, very seriously. Look at how trustworthy I am. See, I know what an NDA is. I know how it works. That's how we all are. The other reason is kind of like some self-protection, because like I said, some people need to keep their mouths shut and they don't. If somebody else leaks that I'm the lead in a project, I want those producers, when they go inevitably looking through my social media account to see if I'm the one who blabbed, to see that I clearly understand how these things work and understand the importance. So it's almost a self-defense. The other reason is for newer people. We want to make sure that those new people come into the industry knowing damn well to keep their mouths shut so that they never have the stigma of NDA violator attached to them. Because, yeah, you could potentially like hurt a project by leaking something, but realistically speaking, you're going to hurt yourself. If you become known as that kind of person, people don't want to hire you because they're like, we can't trust this person, and it ruins people's lives. There are people who they made one mistake and it bit them so hard it damaged their career permanently. And it's mainly for self-protection and for protection of other actors as much as it is for the protection of all the studios that we work for. Because legitimately, you really do want to keep your mouth shut. You can cost a project a lot of money if you leak something that people shouldn't know about. So it is something serious, but at the same time, like, if you accidentally slip up, no, it's very unlikely that they're going to fire you and replace you. You're probably going to get told, hey man, cut that crap out, okay? That's how it usually goes. That's the reality, but we are very, very vocal about this to protect ourselves and to protect other people. So in general, don't do it. If something happens, don't think your life is over. That's probably not the case. Just try to keep your mouth shut about anything. And by the way, for any new actors out there, if you didn't sign an NDA, just assume there is one. It'll make your life so much easier, because that way there's no record of you ever saying anything public until it comes out. And even then, here's how things can get weird. Sometimes you have to get permission before you can say anything, even if the project is public and you've been credited in it.
Are you serious?
It gets yes. What? So for instance, I'm Shiro Ogami in a brand new Animal. It's called BNA. It's a Netflix anime. It came out in Japan first with the English dub cast list attached to it. So my voice wasn't released publicly as this character yet, but if you stick through and you're on Netflix through like some sort of like a server, a VPN, and you can access Japanese shows, you could see it early. And then if you fast forward through the credits, you see my name. Technically, I'm credited. It's been released. Hasn't been released in America yet. I'm not allowed to say anything. So everybody going like, here's a screenshot proving it's real. Ben, congratulations. I have to just sit there in silence and ignore all of it. That's how this goes. So like, yeah, you have to make sure, talk to people. And if there's an inkling of doubt, ask somebody. I recently did Bebo Saves Christmas. It's a Christmas special starring Bebo from the CW, from the Arrowverse. And articles were being written about it, mentioning that I played this character in this show. I'm already the character on the original show. It's not a stretch that I would play it in the animated series. I still sent an email to my agent saying, was this a leak or am I allowed to acknowledge this? They reached out to production. Production got back, said, no, we signed off on all of these articles. It's okay for Ben to acknowledge it and say, yes, this is me. And I'm like, great. But that's the extent you got to go through to make sure you're not messing up. So it is something to be taken seriously. But again, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet of people who think like, oh, I heard that this person said in an Instagram live that he played a character. I bet he's going to be replaced. That's the death sentence for a voice actor. And it's like, no, it depends. These things are all different, but in general, it's just shush. Just don't. If there's ever any kind of like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, shut up. That is the overall story to take away from it. That's how it works.
That reminds me of, Josh Keaton was in the new What If as Captain America, and tons of people on Twitter were like, oh my God, excuse me, Spider-Man is in the new What If. Josh Keaton is going to be Spider-Man. Josh Keaton is going to be Spider-Man. And like everyone was passing it around. And I even was like, Josh Keaton is going to be, that's weird. He's already Captain. Okay, well, I guess he's Spider-Man. And then the show comes out. He's not Spider-Man. And everyone was like on the internet was like, did we just gaslight ourselves into believing Josh Keaton is Spider-Man again? And Josh Keaton retweeted and was like, and I had just had to sit here with my NDA, not able to say anything. And I was like, how that made, to me, I was confused. I was like, that's not how NDAs work. You can just talk about it if you're not in it, right? But I don't. Yeah, that kind of clears it up for me a lot, because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. NDAs are just for you not to talk about projects that like you're involved in, but you can't talk about. But since you're already involved in What If as Captain America, you can surely come out and say you're not Spider-Man. So that's kind of like that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like, because technically, because he's already working on the show, he's on an NDA, so he can't say anything about stuff that hasn't been released. That's why. But like, the other thing too is, even if he weren't in that show at all, it would probably be a wise decision of him to stay quiet and say absolutely nothing until the show comes out, even though he's not signed to an NDA. Again, assume there is one, because this way people can tell this guy doesn't talk about stuff he's not in, he's not working on, he keeps his mouth shut if it's not released. And so like, that's kind of like just a general rule of thumb with any of that stuff, is just assume there's an NDA, try not to say anything, even if technically you don't have to. Like, technically, Kingdom Hearts 45 is not a game. We are not up to Kingdom Hearts 45. But if you ask me, what do you think is going to happen in the 45th entry in this franchise? I'd be like, I can't talk about that. Why? Because I don't want people to think, oh, Ben is going to like talk about things he shouldn't talk about. And like, also like, sometimes straight up, like, I mislead people about what I do and don't know about projects like all the time, and I just lie. So like real talk, anything that hasn't come out yet, if I've been like, oh yeah, I know this super secret thing, but I'm not telling, I'm probably full of crap. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just messing with people. So like, that's, yeah, we have to kind of like keep on our toes about all of that stuff. Yeah, that's
okay. That's really cool now to know more about what NDAs entail, because I've never really asked the voice actor, like, what specifically can you and cannot do with NDAs? Because that Josh King situation was very interesting to me that he said that, because like I said, I was under the impression, hey, you're in the show, if you're not Captain America, if you're not Spider-Man, just come out and say it. But that's really interesting and cool, and helps a lot of people out there, I'm sure, who are watching this, who want to get in this industry, such as myself, who know how NDAs work. And that's another thing I was wondering. If this show is not under NDA, can I just say it, period? Can I just be like, hey, I'm in this show, it's okay, no NDA? Like, how does that work, and what would that do to my career? So that's another thing that I like to know. So, yeah, it's cool.
Right. Okay, so here's how things can get weird. All right, so that situation, first of all, the answer to it is reach out to whoever's producing it and say, may I speak about this? Even when it comes out, is it okay for me to acknowledge that I'm in this thing? That way you have, especially in written form, by the way, that way you have like an email from somebody with authority saying, yes, go ahead and say that you're this character. You're in the clear. Let's see. Oh, who was it? It was Christina V, I believe. She was the original voice for a trailer for Fire Emblem Three Houses. Her character was recast as Tara Platt. Christina was given permission from Nintendo to announce when the trailer launched that she was this voice, the voice of Edelgard in this trailer. And she did. Then she got recast. It was purely a casting choice. They were just like, we want to go in a different direction. That's all it was. People falsely believe that she broke NDA, and that's why they replaced her. 100% false. Not true at all. So she has to now, despite not breaking NDA, has to then tell everybody, no, I am not a risk. I know how to keep my mouth shut. And I mean, to give you an idea of just how seriously she takes NDAs, Christina got cast as Sailor Mars in Sailor Moon. She is a huge Sailor Moon fan. This role meant the world to her. She didn't tell her own mother about this. Her mother found out that she was Sailor Mars when she said, come to Anime Expo. There's going to be a Sailor Moon panel I really want to go to. Come with me. And her mom was like, okay, sure. She was like, hang on, I got to go do something. She leaves. She comes out on stage and says, I'm Sailor Mars. That's how her own mother found out about that. Most people tell their parents about things like this. She didn't even tell her. That's how seriously she takes these things. And then she has to deal with this completely unfair reputation as a non-disclosure agreement violator. That's how bonkers some of this stuff can get. It's enough to make you want to pull your hair out.
Sounds like his shoes.
Yeah.
Now I want to go into a franchise that's meant a lot to me, especially during the pandemic when I was just looking at content to look at. I'm going to talk about Naruto. And of course, he played. Yeah. Where's he at? There he is. He
hey, there's the midriff, the pale midriff of Sai.
But while I was researching, you played more than Sai in the Naruto franchise. You played Tojima Uchiha, the third third Kazekage. I'm a fan. Why did I mess that up? In terms of other characters, you played Tojirama Senju as a younger kid. Like, you've done a ton of these characters in this franchise. Were you a fan of Naruto before working on the show? Were you aware? Well, no, you were in the first Naruto, right?
Right. I was at the very tail end of the first Naruto, like the last, like, I think 80 episodes are basically filler. I was like a filler enemy in like that one. Arashi Fuma, I believe his name was. So yeah, I auditioned for the dub back in the day. I auditioned for like Sasuke and Naruto and stuff like that. And then started watching it, and I wound up really just enjoying the show just as a fan. Like the Rock Lee fight is still Rock Lee versus Gaara. That I don't think they topped that because it's just like the best stuff ever. I love the genius of hard work aspect of that character, where he's just like, yeah, I just work out really freaking hard. It's like so cool. It was just a really awesome show. I would say not a super fan, but definitely a fan. Like, I definitely saw like all of the episodes of the original run of the series and the majority of Shippuden.
Did you have to audition for Sai, since you had already done voices prior? Did you just be like, hey Ben, do you want to do this character, or how'd that work?
Oh, I think yes. I think I did audition for Sai and a couple of other characters, and didn't really know who they were. So it was kind of like, oh, I guess I booked one. Like, I thought he was just going to be like a little character who shows up for like one episode and then we don't see him ever again. And then they were like, no, he's replacing Sasuke on Team 7. And I'm like, what? And then it turned out, nah, just kidding. Like, nah, actually, then he just sort of like just kind of leaves. And like, oh, okay. So like, it's funny because it's sort of like, he's the guy who like pops his head in from like the side of the frame and goes, and I'm here too, and then leaves. And it's like, that's his whole thing. So like, most of my work on that show is like, show up. All right, Ben, we've got like 7 episodes to record in 2 hours. I'm like, are you ready? I'm like, yeah. All right, you have like two lines in each episode. Until we finish like in half an hour. And it's like, all right, thanks for coming in. 7 episodes in the can. See you later. I'm like, great. That's what it's like to be Sai.
Sai is such a interesting character, especially when he came in he had this attitude. I swear, when I first saw Sai, I hated the living crap out of him. I'm not gonna lie to you, I could not stand him. I was so annoyed. I remember I was texting my friend because he was ahead of me in Shippuden. I was like, hey, this Sai character gotta go. Like, he has to get killed, or like something has to happen. I cannot stand him. And he was like, hey, Josh, chill. Keep going. You're gonna like him later on. And I was like, all right, he's getting on my nerves, but I'll keep going. And I fell in love with the character. Like, I love Sai. He's so cool. And I'm glad that he's in Boruto now, and that you're still Sai, because for a lot of the characters in Naruto Shippuden who are in Boruto, a lot of the original cast are not them. Like, Troy Baker isn't Yamato. That's Matthew Mercer. Travis